you're alone at night, cozied up on the couch, and watching a movie, with the room a well-lit enclosure, your safety is not in question. There's a gust of wind outside, the trees rattle and scrape against the window. You hear a loud fizzle, and the power goes out. You're now engulfed in pitch darkness, and for most people, fear is probably setting in. Fear is just like pain. Fear is there to protect us from possible harm, said Martin Antony, professor of psychology at Ryerson University in Toronto and author of the Anti-Anxiety Workbook, so that fear makes us more vigilant for possible danger. Prehistorically, people would have been more at risk of being attacked by predators or enemies when in the dark, he said. Through evolution, humans have therefore developed a tendency to be scared of darkness. In the dark, our visual sense vanishes, and we are unable to detect who or what is around us. We rely on our visual system to help protect us from harm, Antony said. Being scared of the dark is a prepared fear. The unknown is an inherent association that humans make with the color black, as it prevents them from seeing distinct shapes and veils potential threats. How we see colors in nature has such an important effect on the human psyche, and we know that from the beginning of time, black is the color of night, and it's the color that could hide any nefarious deeds that might be perpetrated under the cover of darkness. This notion is imprinted on us from the time we're children. However, thanks to modern technology, we're now able to turn on the light and continue to have fun even at night. But some never quite shake that fear. Though fear is natural, it may become an issue if it gets excessive. Many of us may experience a strong fear while alone at night in a dangerous part of town, but it's not as common to feel that way in a dark bedroom. Excessive fear of the dark can be caused by a variety of factors. It may come from a negative experience, such as getting attacked in a dark place, or it can be caused by something as simple as watching a horror movie. Some fears are acquired based on specific life experiences. Others are more universal and innate. Fear of darkness, which in extreme forms is known as nyctophobia or achleophobia, falls into that latter category. The reason, it's not the darkness itself that's frightening, it's the fear of what the darkness masks. The dark leaves us vulnerable and exposed, unable to spot any threats that may be lurking nearby. For much of human history, dark meant danger, and fearing it meant taking precautions to stay safe. Evolutionary, it was an advantage. As we age, people typically learn to disregard that link in everyday life. Darkness can up the spook factor of a novel situation, but most of us eventually become comfortable enough to ditch the nightlight in our own homes. Not all, though. In one survey, nearly 40% of respondents say that they were afraid to walk around the house with the lights off. In fact, 10% said that they wouldn't even get out of bed to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. And in one small study, around half of the participants who characterized themselves as poor sleepers also admitted to being afraid of the dark, compared to just a quarter of self-described good sleepers, suggesting that in some cases, the fear can be powerful to enough cause chronic insomnia. Most kids go through a stage in which they're afraid of the dark. Any creaking floorboard, rustling shutter, or a random bump in the night fill them with terror. Good. Here's why, and why we should maybe never grow out of it. It's maybe an obvious point, but it's not the dark itself that children find so terrifying. It's the fear of whatever boogeyman or the supine monster under the bed that made the sound to begin with. This fear and the grinding anxiety that it generates acts as a check and limiting mechanism against reckless behavior like, say, running around in the dead of the African night with the continent's worth of big cats out on the prowl. In other words, it's an evolutionary advantage. We create monsters because they fill that predator void. A great example of this is how horror movies work. Good ones never directly show you the monster because your imagination makes something way scarier. Remember, for a large portion of humanity's early days, we were far from the top of the food chain. Our ancestors quickly learned that many predators prefer the cover of darkness to hunt, and over time that association strengthened into a subconscious absolute. Stay out of the dark, because that's where the danger is. While fear of the dark can manifest itself as an acute reaction, like panicked screaming when someone suddenly turns off the lights, or as insomnia, as a recent study concluded at the University of Toronto suggests, it more commonly manifests as foreboding anxiety. The emotion of anxiety plays a specific role in our behavioral responses to stimuli, just as the emotions of love, anger, and sadness do, acting to increase our ability to cope with stress and more fully exploit beneficial opportunities. Specifically, anxiety increases your awareness of situations that may damage your reproductive resources. Not just your vital signs, but your relationships, income, social standing, physical features, anything that makes you more attractive to the opposite sex and more likely to reproduce. Unlike anger or sadness, which occur in direct response to a specific event, we respond to environmental cues indicating a potential future loss, with anxiety prior to the expected event, since that is when it is most evolutionary beneficial. That is, our ancestors who best recognized and responded to these cues increased their chances of survival and reproduction compared to their more mutton-headed peers. Feeling anxiety over the past event is a complete waste of your resources, since whatever damage has likely already been inflicted. Not only is it no use crying over spilled milk, doing so could get you killed if you're a Neanderthal. Since that response is correlated with natural selection, certain cues such as snake or cat eye patterns, spider-like objects, and darkness, where the snakes, leopards, and spiders all live, more easily invoke that emotion. This is the result of generation upon generation of early humans reacting to and subsequently preparing for dangers such as these. That's why many ancient threats, uncontrolled fire, spiders, snakes, predators, and darkness, and more easily instigate a negative response, even in small children, that modern threats like automobiles, nuclear war, or guns do. While anxiety is deeply rooted in our psyche, it is not entirely instinctive. We also learn fear and anxiety responses from our parents. If a small child is frightened of a new or unknown object and its mother responds in a calming manner, the kid learns that the item is not a threat. If the parent responds with apprehension herself, however, the child's fears are confirmed and enhanced. This allows for offspring to rapidly learn of the dangers around themselves without actually having to be bitten by snakes, mauled by lions, or being electrocuted by a penny in the wall socket, while simultaneously figuring out that everything from leaves and small rocks to thunder and scary scenes on TV aren't actually threats. It's quite a beautiful system, really. This subtle gnawing emotion has been honed and refined over millennia by both nature and nurture into a vital survival response that remains as useful in the modern world as it did in the Neolithic. Sure, the environmental cues have adapted somewhat, with anxiety over social interactions and property replacing those over finding shelter and not starving to death, but the basic threat response remains. Make sure you get yours lived to reproduce another day. The fear of the dark, and by extension the fear of the unknown, are simply there to make sure you don't ever forget it. Problem is, the trigger's so incredibly common. And unlike dogs or llamas, or people looming in close proximity, it's a fear that's nearly impossible to contain. Once the lights go out, it builds and spreads, manifesting as a fear of what's in the room to whatever your imagination can conjure. If you find that you struggle with being in the dark, be curious about what is actually frightening you, and use your fear to take action against these threats, making sure that there is nothing in the dark that is threatening. For example, if you're scared of someone breaking into your place, consider fortifying locks on your doors, getting an alarm system, or taking a home safety class to learn what you can do to make your place safer. Knowing you have done what you can to protect yourself and calm your fears when they kick in. You can also just get a nightlight. Using practical coping mechanisms is important. If you fear the dark, use these practical coping mechanisms to make you comfortable. Nightlights and automatic lights, AI devices that can control lights, and many more. If those options don't work and you think your fear of the dark is more of a phobia, it can be a good idea to talk to a therapist who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy. But if it's not that severe, now you know, you're not alone. Are you still scared of the dark? Sometimes it's all in our minds. Do you like videos like these? Give this video a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe to Idea Haven.